like the countdown has begun. James, we're starting off on Star Station.
Star Station. This is a map I've played once on, so I'm going to know tons about it. It's going to be fantastic. So we are here for the King of the Hill Heart of the Swarm Iron Squid tournament. Show match series even. So basically, there's a prize structure for it, right? It's just basically King of the Hill. You win $100 to begin with, and depending on how long you stay on, I think it's like $25 for each extra one. And we're going to have one of them every single broadcast, I believe.
Yeah. I mean, this is a chance for people to get a glimpse into what people are experimenting with in Heart of the Swarm. WhiteRa is really one of the beasts of Heart of the Swarm, has been non-stop playing. Currently one of the top grandmasters in the game. Dimaga has not actually played quite as much as WhiteRa, so I'm excited to see him play, and it looks like we are now in the game.
Awesome stuff. So let's jump right on in, guys. Spawning down in our bottom left-hand corner here, as our Blue Zerg, kicking things off in game number one, we have MTW's Dimaga.
And of course, in the top right, using some of his custom decals on that Nexus, it is WhiteRa. And I honestly think that this map, Star Station, has a kind of unique formation. It already has the cool tile set. It's the Diablo 3 tile set. I actually can't look at this map and not think I'm in Diablo 3. But the Xel'Naga watchtowers are very interestingly placed. In particular, this far right and far left Xel'Naga watchtower, where controlling those are excellent for defending against counterattacks, and this back alley is literally, it seems like it was designed for the counter.
Yeah, that's actually kind of cool. That, I mean, there's a little bit of airspace that you can, I mean, does that stretch all the way to the very edge of the map, or is that can you exploit that with some kind of aerial assault at the very extremity of the map?
You can actually do some spotting there on the right side. It's basically impossible to avoid that watchtower from that backside. So it's a nice way to ensure that you don't have to deal with anything obnoxious like drops in the late game, so long as your focus and your vision control is on point enough. So looks like Dimaga right now is just going straight for the standard early pool. WhiteRa is not going to be doing any of the gateway first type stuff that has become kind of popular as of late. He's actually just going for the Nexus first.
Fair play, fair play. I don't mind the idea of Nexus first. In today's Heart of the Swarm meta game, is that something that is considered pretty acceptable? I mean, actually, now that I think about it, there isn't really too much in terms of extra aggression that Zerg can put on at this point, right? There's not. It's
really true. I mean, unless, of course, you're against a Protoss who's cutting some massive corners and really does not want to have himself defended at the start of the game. I mean, you can do things like Gateway Mothership core defense, and some people have been doing that and trying to trick the Protoss into thinking that a Mothership core is as good as a cannon, but most Zergs just walk right past.
Yeah. Yeah, fair play, fair play. We'll have to see what else is going to go on then as Dimaga just throws down his hatchery. You don't have much else going on other than the Forge going down, as well as Gateway. Cannon after Gateway will allow him to get a little bit of tech going. And, I mean, in terms of a mid-game for a Protoss, if they're going to open with Oracles and stuff like that and go around sniping hatcheries or whatever they want to do, is it basically still the standard core of that goes for Protoss, you know, with Blink Stalkers, Colossi, etc., etc.?
Oh yeah, no doubt. I mean, a lot of the fundamentals of Protoss composition aren't changed. The big thing that is changed is the opportunities for Protoss aggression. I mean, you think about the way that mid-games generally look for Protoss, it's often quite passive. I'm just going to sit back till I have my money mix of Colossus, and then I'm just going to go for one large attack. And occasionally you'll get players like Dong Regu who will cut a ton of corners as Zerg, and you can do maybe an earlier push. But now with the Mothership core, you can do things like just Blink Stalker, waltz right on into the main, shoot a couple things, get fungled, and still be able to recall out anyways. So it means that you can do some poking and prodding. It opens the game up a lot more. It means Zerg has to be very much so on his toes, because it's not just a few fungals will shut down that sort of pressure.
Oh, okay. Fair play. Okay, right. We have the Mothership core now on the way, and as we've already mentioned before, this can be used to put on some pressure. How much energy does it actually take to recall? Is it like 100 or something like that? Is it? Okay, so you can't necessarily push out super early with that, but you can actually try and go for a little bit of aggression later on. So, I mean, you were saying before that this is something that WhiteRa might end up mixing in, and actually the Mothership core is already getting aggressive.
Yeah,
Ooh.
I mean, this is a very nice little push. I mean, you think about the Zealot Stalker already exploits a Zerg that goes for this triple hatch play, and look at this behind this White Ra is actually going for a third Nexus. That's a really
Whoa.
slick play. And if you think about it, a Zealot and a Stalker is already a good threat against Zerg. Why not Zealot Stalker and Mothership Core? It'll help do a little bit of extra damage.
Yeah, that's some really, really cool kind of like little poking that we're seeing here. I actually love the idea of this, just to really constrict your opponent a little bit. And actually, I mean, if this Zealot dies, then, I mean, it's got quite a little bit of damage off. It's killed a few Zerglings, it's keeping his opponent busy. And the Queen's actually going to have to evacuate this location. So Dimaga's being forced to use a lot of lava here on trying to reinforce.
Yeah, the Queens early on are so critical for defense, not just because the strength of the Oracle, but because these pushes are much more common and they're much more potent. Mothership Core is just an excellent little minor boost just to force the Zerg on the back foot. And now we see that Zergling speed has just started. We're just hitting 7 minutes and 30 seconds, so Dimaga is pretty standard in his timing with his Roach Warren and Evolution Chamber. And look, already WhiteRa will have 4 gateways done, his 3rd Nexus done, and this is quite safe.
That is pretty darn cool. 10 drones on the way right now for Dimaga here. And he might end up getting overlord picked up, but no, it manages to get away just barely there. And meanwhile, we have that Roach Warren, as you said, going down. So very, very standard play here from Dimaga right now. Meanwhile, very curious to see what WhiteRa is actually going to go for in terms of a mix. I guess with the way in which HOTS is now playing out for Protoss, you do see Stargates more often because of the potential potency, but actually he's not mining any gas from his natural right now, is WhiteRa.
Yeah, it looks like he's just going to throw down the geysers, and you can help get a read on your opponent a little bit. So WhiteRa right now, I think, is going to be in a fairly comfortable position. You'll notice that the Zerg player is in what we would call the normal position to be in as a Zerg player.
Yeah.
Nothing too out of the ordinary, but it's delayed by about 45 seconds to a minute, and that's thanks to that early aggression.
There was actually the Mothership trying to poke in there from the very back and actually try and go for some aggression itself. WhiteRa just pausing the game for a second here. But that's really cool that you can just keep the Mothership hanging around, try and poke him where you want. And also, to a certain degree, I guess this would end up keeping the Zerg back a little bit and a bit more apprehensive about pushing out, because if you push down, I guess technically the Mothership could fly in and recall everything, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of scary.
I mean, the fact is that the Mothership Core, even though it's just a simple support unit, it opens up huge possibilities because it allows you to do all the things that you wanted to do with those normal units but really couldn't. I mean, you think about a lot of the abilities in Wings of Liberty are about restricting movement, like fungal growth or force field. Okay, it looks like WhiteRa now is resuming the game.
Okay. Right,
So
actually, Sean, sorry, I'm actually wrong about that, because the Mothership, the recall thing got rechanged slightly recently, didn't it? So now it basically you can teleport things with your Mothership core back to a Nexus. So when you
Yeah. Sorry, I misunderstood what you said. Yeah, that's one thing that is very important to note is the version that is being referenced.
Yes. Sorry, no, this is my fault. So I am now on top of things. I know which version of HOTS we're playing in, so all is good. And WhiteRa going for a Twilight Council. Sort of pylons everywhere, actually. So pretty cool right now.
And of course, Dimaga going for a 4th base, but quite early. This, I think, is a smart response. I mean, I don't care if you're in any version of StarCraft. If you take a 3rd that fast, there are not a lot of ways that you can apply pressure to the Zerg. So in this circumstance, we're seeing the very fast Infestation Pit, the interesting ultra-fast +1 Carapace, and 21 drones in production. Dimaga seems to be doing quite well for himself.
Wow, and even the robo facility is actually in a really cool place over at WhiteRa's 3rd base. Normally you wouldn't end up putting it right there in the front, but technically it will open up some really, really cool reinforcement paths as long as it stays alive, that is. But you're right, I mean, both players just seem to be kind of macroing up very, very nicely, and this could potentially be the first ever kind of very late game HOTS I've ever seen if we end up getting there, so interesting.
Dimaga does do a gentle poke with roaches that he will regret deeply. Looks like 2 sentries he exchanges for that. Dimaga is climbing quite far ahead in the supply lead, which is a pretty significant hats off to him. I mean, already WhiteRa, though, at 11 minutes has 78 workers, and is he gearing up for his 4th? Whoa! WhiteRa loves expanding. Holy cow. And look at this. Swarm hosts
Ooh.
being incorporated into the mid-game army, we will now get the opportunity to see some early pressure with HOTS
Now,
units.
I have a question, Sean. With the swarm hosts just being 2 right now, how useful are they really in small numbers? I assume with a unit like that, you would need them in bigger numbers to actually make them very potent.
Well,
Or
looks like Dimaga is still trying to gear up for a push. This is the sort of push that it's not a timing. It's Dimaga going, gosh, you're taking that expansion really early. No way, you're too strong. So he's going to try to make a push attempt right away, and Dimaga's going to back off. But, from your earlier question, James, how do the swarm hosts work in those varying numbers? Well, certainly in large numbers, it's excellent for a consistent push on one location. More and more and more locusts allow you to slowly chip away. But in small numbers, you can burrow, the locusts pop up, and then you can unburrow the swarm host and move completely somewhere else. And it can be very confusing for the Protoss in terms of positioning, because just because the swarm hosts are coming from one angle, just because the locusts are coming from one angle, doesn't mean that the swarm hosts are still there. So small numbers of locusts are certainly going to help some in these engagements, but are definitely good at repositioning your opponent.
Yeah, that's a pretty cool idea, actually. That could be very impressive. The 2 locusts are on the way now, but the Nexus has actually already been turned into that. What is the name of that ability, actually? Okay,
Photon
so
overcharge, and it looks like WhiteRa is gonna try to push up to the top. It's gonna be a huge error. Dimaga already has the +2 carapace for the Zerglings. Tons of infested Terran eggs get thrown down, and WhiteRa is in a lot of trouble.
wow, that was annihilation there. Dimaga with such amazing strength in that engagement. Right now, WhiteRa's still on the ropes here. The Zealots trying to shred away at what they can, but there's even more infested Terrans on the way here. I really don't think that this early 4th base was such the best idea. Guess what we've seen from Dimaga?
Well, WhiteRa could have held on maybe for a little bit longer, but unfortunately, he just tried to push up that ramp. Fungal growth crushed him at that tiny choke point.
Yeah. That was really impressive by Dimaga. I mean, he is still mixing in the swarm hosts here, so he's probably going to end up positioning those for a little bit more aggression later on. But the swarm hosts, just in general, they weren't really a part of that just there. He's getting the evolve enduring locusts as well, so he can actually have even more potency in that little bit of aggression if he wants to find those angles.
This is what's really, really fun about a swarm host at this point in time, that you can get enough of them where originally you would say, okay, well, I've killed off that base, I'm going to go sit because there's no way I can break a lot of Colossus from my opponent. I'll just starve him out on those bases until I have Broodlords. But now you can start doing these earlier pushes with Swarm Hosts. Look at that Greater Spire not even close to being done. WhiteRa doing the smart transition, incorporating Tempest into the Forest. Tempest don't really do that much damage. They're not going to be the huge game changer in a direct engagement, but they force you to engage because they have that long range.
Yeah, they're pretty damn annoying. More locusts are on the way now to this 4th location. Dimaga's just trying to constrict WhiteRa here, and oh my god, he has a lot of swarm hosts. And they actually do a surprising amount of damage. So right now, Dimaga seems like he's in full control of this game, but maybe the Tempest will be able to swing it back in WhiteRa's favor.
We'll allow WhiteRa to chip away, and
yeah,
we'll say, though, the real reason I'm worried about WhiteRa's situation is the fact that he just has too many probes. He's at 91 right now.
He's going to go for a push again with these locusts, trying to poke in. He already sees the Tempest with that, though, so that's some good scouting information for him as well. Luckily, though, for Dimaga, I mean, it almost seems as if he's preparing pretty well for this. He has Neural Parasite if he wants to try and catch them, and these locusts, I mean, they're not costing Dimaga anything right now, so he can still keep poking away and getting really, really nice trades off with that.
This is an excellent position for Dimaga to be in. I mean, look at his production tab. We see air attacks, carapace, +3 going down, now adrenal glands. It's all the mass upgrades, but WhiteRa is not giving up anytime soon. It looks like he's actually expanding to the other nearby 4th base, while that Tempest kind of parks itself in a location that can start to pick off swarm hosts, stray infestors, anything that it can really find.
Yeah, now Tempests they've changed, haven't they, since the very, very beginning of the Heart of the Swarm beta. They've changed to the point where...
Yeah.
Yeah. So they have no range upgrade now. Oh, wait a minute. Looks like Dimaga actually wants to get aggressive here. Loses one of those infestors. Zerglings are on the way to put on some pressure as well as those infested Terrans raining down. But Nice force field placement actually here. Really limiting how much damage that Dimaga can actually do.
Oh, Dimaga's going to try to throw down some infested Terran eggs, but these force fields are just magnificent. I mean, the amount of damage they're doing is ridiculous. Now it's more infested Terrans and Locusts really dealing the damage at the front lines. Dimaga needs another eject of those Locusts, and there finally the round number 2 comes up. So WhiteRa will be able to crush this if he takes out that little pack of units. Mothership Core instantly rushes into the fray to try to do a little bit of detecting on those units. It's using the Envision upgrade, basically turns it into a detector.
Yeah, that's so useful. The Tempest now can actually start working away at those. Locusts, apparently, to my knowledge now, can't shoot up, so they're chilling out, not doing too much either.
Oh yeah, it was awesome when it was range 5, could shoot air and ground, and did 16 damage a shot.
Oh my god. Yeah, that sounds pretty good. The Zealots now on the way to try and clean up the rest of these swarm hosts. But even with that ground, it really does seem like the constant bane of these swarm hosts is that air. One Mothership Core, one Tempest, trying to rip away at this location. So they'll be done eventually in about 2 years.
Fourth Nexus still in a ton of trouble, and we're seeing that Dimaga... Holy Corruptors! Oh my god! Oh my god, the amount of Corruptors that Dimaga just surprised us with. 27 out on the field. There is zero chance that WhiteRa will be able to sustain that sort of pressure. And now Dimaga is going to be able to pull back, hold that happy time B button, and start morphing in a big pack of Broodlords.
Wait a minute, Dimaga's just expanding everywhere now. He has a bank of around 5k. He's decided that this is the time in which he's going to use all of the money everywhere with the ultimate composition. And actually, this just gets scary. I mean, how does WhiteRa contend with the position that Dimaga's found himself in?
Yeah, Dimaga's going into real Zerg mode, and it looks like WhiteRa's decided that he's going to go for a counterattack. Where's the Mothership Core, though? Is the Mothership Core gone? There's no way that he can recall these units back to the base, so that means that now Dimaga's just going to be able to charge up with the Swarm Host alone.
Oh my god, those Locusts taking up the Stalkers so quickly. Meanwhile, though, down to the south, we have WhiteRa putting on tons of pressure at his opponent's base. But, I mean, realistically, you can put on all this pressure, sure, but there's going to be extra 3 bases for every single one lost. And the Stalkers get caught by Fungals pretty darn quickly here.
Looks like WhiteRa might be able to do some damage, though. There still is 5,000 in the bank. Dimaga can easily flood with a ton of Zerglings, anything like that, to be able to take this out. There, the Zergling count starts to rise, and we just see all the Corruptors hanging out, looking for anything to kill. But now they're going to be looking for anything to corrupt, as WhiteRa is going to be on the mass retreat, but impressively still hasn't lost those bases, and the Tempest is working away at these Swarm Hosts.
Wow, this is pretty insane. I was thinking, you know, as soon as I saw those packs of Corruptors in, I was like, wow, that all those Corruptors for 1 Tempest and 3 Colossus, really? This is pretty good, but he's coming along to actually kill off his Tempest once again here with the Corruptors. We'll kill it off in just a second, but WhiteRa's decided that the base trade is for him, and he's killing off the rest of the bases down to the south. Actually, no, he's going to pull back for now. Nice.
This is such a tough position to be in as WhiteRa. I mean, you do have kinda 5 bases, but you're under constant duress at the front. You're running low on money. You're at 130 supply. And these Stalkers don't even really seem to be able to make much headway down on the bottom right side. WhiteRa trying to rebuild the Mothership Core, but the Lane Locust count is far too high, and that gets taken out.
Yeah, too many Broodlords here as well. I think he might have more Broodlords than Stalkers right now.
There's the good game.
Wow.